Hey, what is going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. So, the video that I have for you guys today, I am going to show you guys how to make a rain spout. Oh, I know, very exciting, right? Yeah, a gutter and a rain spout. But hey, it's something that every model needs, right? So whether you're doing a placeable or you're doing a prefab or whatever fancy project you happen to be working on at the time, this rain spout is going to come in very handy, right? Adds a little bit of aesthetic to your house and just kind of makes things pop and look really good, right? Every house needs one. I can't say every house because there's some of them I don't put rain spouts on. All right, so there's different ways to do this. Some look better than others. Some are easier than others. It's kind of up to you on how you want to get this done. Now, I know if you look at some of them that Giants has done, let's see if I can find a house here that's a Giants house. Let's see. I'm not sure which one of these. Maybe down here. All right, they tend to have a little bit of a square look to theirs. Not all of them, and they run theirs really dark too. They do like black spouts for some reason. All right, these look pretty normal. Yeah, that one looks pretty normal. I've seen some of them that come down to a like a V shape almost. It comes down, shoots flat across the bottom, and then shoots back up. Looks like a trough of some sort, right? But this doesn't need anything, and they do that to keep like a low poly is the reason they do it that way, right? So they don't need to be super round or anything like that. They just need to be they just need to look good. They need to be there. Put it that way. All right. And that's what we're going to do. We're not going to do anything really crazy. We're going to keep this low poly, have it looking good, and then we'll have a spout by the time we're done here. Right. So this is the method that I use almost all the time. I've changed it up once or twice just to kind of experiment. I've tried squares instead of, using cylinders. Cylinders, anything cylinder, depending on how many cuts you put in or how many sides, tends to be very heavy as far as your vertices, your vertices go, your counts go, right? And we don't want to do that. We don't want to add, any extra geometry that's not absolutely necessary, right? So we're going to keep this simple. All right. So with any gutter, any rain spout, first you need to pick out, where you want it, and you can see this model here is very simple. Not done yet. I still need windows and stuff like that, but it's kind of getting there. This is a very, very simple model. But you want to pick where you want it to go. You want it to go on this side of the house. You want it to go on this side of the house. Maybe like if, you see on the back side, it can run along the entire edge. All right. But you need to pick where you want it. And in this case, I'm going to run it right on this left-hand side right here. I'm going to put one for now anyhow. All right. And that's where I want it. So the very first thing I do is I'm going to hit number 2 to get myself in an edge select. And I'm going to pick the bottom edge of this roof here, right? This roof trim. I'm going to pick the very bottom edge right there because that's where I want that gutter to go. I want it to run right along that bottom edge. All right. And I'm going to hit Shift D as in dog, right? Because I want to duplicate that edge. I'm going to hit the letter X for X-ray to get myself on the X axis. And I'm going to pull it away from the house just a little bit, like you see there. And that is going to become the base for our gutter. I know it's kind of hard to visualize right now. How the hell is that going to become a gutter? But it will. Trust me. We're going to get there. All right. So from here, I am going to hit P's and Paul. And P stands for, I don't know, it's separate. We're going to be separating. I don't know why P stands for separate, but we're going to be separating this selection. So we'll hit the letter S for selection. All right. So all we really did there is we took that edge and we separated it away from the main group. So it's its own object. All right. So I can tab over to, or was I already in there? I want to get into object mode. All right. I'm going to highlight that gutter. You can rename this if you get confused between which one is which, and you can rename that one to gutter if you want to. Okay. And from there, I am going to right click and I'm going to convert that to a curve. All right. Now, the reason we convert it to a curve is curves obviously are much easier to work with, right? You can make twists and bends and it's a whole lot easier to work with than just a solid piece of geometry, right? Like compared to like a cylinder and, trying to like, make some kind of sweeping curve on that. The way we would do that is via a curve. All right. Because it's just a lot easier to work with. All right. Now you can see when I switched that over to a curve, when I converted it over to a curve, it added this little loopy looking thing next to it over here. Okay. And that is the symbol for a curve. So when you look at your scene collection, you know what's what, right? This triangle looking thing is a mesh. You can see everything that has a wrench next to it has some sort of modifier applied to it. And anything that has that loopy looking thing has a curve applied to it, and this is a curve. All right, over on the right hand side here, you want to go down into your properties, and we're going to find the data properties for the curve. That same loopy looking thing. We're going to click on that. All right. Once we have that, actually, there's one step I want to do in between there. Before I get that far, what I want to do is I want to tab back over into edit mode. All right. And you can see we have two vertices on either end. I don't even know if these would be vertices. These would be more like the control points like we would normally use for like a spline inside of a Giants editor, because we can utilize these to change that curve, right? We can move them and it would change this curve here, but we're going to leave it straight because we want our gutter to be straight. But right now, if there's a step we need to make, and if we don't make this step, our gutter would come out sideways. All right. So, and I'm going to show you what it's going to look like right now. So I'm not going to make this step right now. I'm going to show you what happens if we don't make this step. All right. Actually, if you're following this video in order, uh, if you're following along, maybe I should do that step now. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control T for tilt. Okay. And we're going to hit a -90. So we're taking those control points and we're basically spinning them 90 degrees. All right. And then I'm going to tab back into object mode. Now I'm going to go back over here into my object properties for my curve properties. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm scrolling down here is where it says fill mode. I am going to hit that drag down list and I'm going to click it to half. All right, so what's going to happen is it's going to turn this into a cylinder. All right, so instead of being a perfectly round cylinder, it's only going to be a half a cylinder now. And I'll show you the difference that this makes when we get a little bit further along here. Okay, a little bit further down, you want to open up the spot for geometry. Okay, the very first thing I usually do is I take this resolution and I knock that down to 2. And I'll show you what all these things do once we get a little bit further along. All right, and I'm going to hit fill caps, that checkbox there. I'm going to check that. Now from there, make sure that underneath bevel, you have round selected, okay? And from there, we're just going to work on a depth. We're going to drag that depth out a little bit. We're going to drag that spout out just visually. There's no, hard, fast number that we're going to be utilizing. We're just going to kind of take a step back and see how that looks, right? Make it a little wider if you need to, a little skinnier if you need to. All right. And then you can grab it using G and then move it along the X axis and tuck it back up under under the lip of that roof. So that's where you want it to sit. Then you can kind of see how it looks. I've done it already where it looked too clunky. It was too big and too fat and it just looks weird. And I've already had it be too skinny. Now, the one thing you could do is not apply anything that we're going to be doing here. So if it doesn't look right, you can come back and change it. All right. All right. So let me show you what these things do now that we have this selected. So we started out with this, this curve here, right? Or with this, the first thing I was going to do is I was going to tab over to edit mode and show you how to move those control points, right? So Control T for tilt, right? So you can see what happened there is it spins that 90 degrees. So if you were to miss that step and you end up with a spout or a gutter that looks something like this, well, that's what you did. You forgot that step where you need to spin that. Now, if you didn't know about Control T for tilt, most of you guys are probably going to try to convert back over to a mesh and you're going to try to spin that on its y-axis to get that straightened out. Well, you don't need to do that. While you're in the curve mode, that's what that Control T does, right? So Control T -90 and it spins it just like so. Okay, so that's what that does. The fill caps, what that does is this is our end caps right there, right? You can see how we only have like half of a cylinder. By clicking on this, that would fill those caps in for us. Alrighty. And the last thing is our resolution. If you look underneath, by changing the resolution, you can see it just basically adds more cuts to it. Now it looks like super duper smooth, right? And you can get it all the way down to the point where you have zero and it just looks like a triangle. You could even do that if you wanted to. That's kind of what I was talking about with giants. I think one is what they probably do. Actually, one doesn't look that bad either. I normally stick with two, but you can do one. One actually may be a better option. Yeah, one doesn't look that bad. I normally knock it down to two. Let's try one. One actually, because like I said, the whole name of the game here is to keep our poly count low, right? We don't want to be, jacking it up with a bunch of extra polys that we don't need. But this is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with what you have here. That would make a perfectly fine gutter, in my opinion. You just want to make sure that you don't have it too wide. That's what's going to throw you off. If you make this gutter too wide, it's just going to look funky. That one might need a little bit more thickness, maybe like so. And I'll pull that away from the house just a little bit. I think that looks okay. All right. Now, the only problem that we have here with this gutter, all right, I don't know, or is that a little too big? See, this is the way it goes with me. I get hung up on these things. Is it too big? Is it too small? And this is what I mean about not applying anything. If you leave things the way they are and you go back to work on the rest of the house, you can always come back to it. Oops. You can always come back to it and say, you know what, that does look a little bit too big. And you're still able to make changes at this point if you need to. All right. So like if I decided that was a little too big, I could always click back into it and just shrink that up a hair if I wanted to. Okay. All right. So what I was about to tell you is the one problem we have with this right now is our normals. Okay. So if we look at this in what would that be? Like face normal, what would that be called? Face direction, basically. Face orientation is what it'd be called. Um, I have mine mapped to alternate X so I can tab in and out of there pretty quickly. But what you would want to do is go up to your overlay options and you can go down to face orientation and turn that on and off. But anyhow, if we were to like look at this in game from like the top down, maybe you're doing a flyover or something like that, you'll be able to see right through this gutter if you look at it from the top, and we don't want that, right? So we want this to be a solid object and not be able to see through it. So the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to have this highlighted in object mode, and we're going to add a modifier to it, and we are going to solidify. All right, so we're going to go down to the solidify modifier, and there's nothing fancy that we need to do with this. Just get yourself in here so you can see what's going on, and you can see what it did now instead of this is what it looked like before, right? It just looked like a plane bent, it bent into a U shape. So when we add our modifier, solidify, it gave it edges, basically. It gave it some thickness. All right. So speaking of thickness, we're going to go over here to our properties on our modifier, and we're just going to drag that thickness, go into that thickness box and drag it down somewhere in there. This isn't as much for like the visual, so you can see the thickness on the gutter. It's just so you can't see through it is basically what it comes down to. Now, by all means, if you feel like it looks better, by giving it more thickness, I tend to keep mine pretty skinny. But if you think it looks a little bit better, you can do that. You can, give it a little more thickness, and that's fine. Not a problem with that. All right. So that gutter right there is pretty well done. All right. Now, like I said, I suggest, to keep working on other aspects of the house. And if you feel like you need to, nothing is set in stone yet. You can come back and change that. But I'm going to show you, how to keep going once you make it past that point and you do want to have it all finished up. So from here, you can either apply your modifier, right? Or what I do is I just convert it back over to a mesh, and that's it. Once you convert it back to a mesh, it automatically applies that modifier and you don't have to worry about it. All right, so that part is done. It's now a mesh that we can utilize like we would, any one of our other parts of our house. Okay, so the next step is our downspout. We want to get a downspout in here. So I'm going to tab over to vertices select mode, and I'm going to grab this vertice right here on the bottom, the one that's dead in the middle. Okay, so I'm gonna grab that, and we're going to go basically through the same process again. And I'm going to Control or Shift D to duplicate. And I'm going to drag that along the y-axis. So I'm going to move that over right into the position where I want that downspout to be. All right. So right there looks about right. That looks pretty good. Okay. And I'm going to hit E to extrude and then Z for the Z axis because I want to pull it down. And I'm not going to go too far. Right. So once you pull it down, if you decide it's not far enough, you don't need to extrude again. Now you can just grab it and pull it a little bit further down. All right, so I'm going to pull it down just a little bit further. I guess right there should be okay. All right, so we're going to extrude again. E for extrude, this time X for the X axis, and we're going to bring it back in towards that wall there, like so. Now don't bring it right up to the wall. Give yourself some room because there's going to be, we're going to be making a cylinder out of this. All right, now this hard 90 doesn't look good. No rain spouts, downspouts look like that. So we want to give it a little bit of a taper. So we're just going to grab that with G, Z for the Z axis. We're going to pull that down like so, maybe 45 degrees, somewhere in that area is fine. All right, and then E to extrude again, Z for the Z axis, and we're going to bring that down towards the bottom, and we're going to give it one more bend. So we're going to E to extrude, X for the X axis. We're going to pull that out a little bit, grab it one more time, pull it down on the Z axis like so. Okay, so you should have something like what you see there. Okay, and you can move any one of these around. If it doesn't look quite right, you can grab any one of these points and move it into a better position. That's not a problem. All right, so everywhere it makes a curve, right here, this point here, this point here, and this point here, I want to give that a little bit of a bevel so it doesn't look so sharp, right? You don't want that sharp, that's that much of a sharp corner there. All right, so this isn't like a working with a face where we hit Control B to bevel. We have to hit Shift Control B because we're beveling vertices. All right, we just pull that away like so. It works the same other than that, right? So the scroll wheel, you could add more cuts or take away cuts if you want to. All right, but like I said, I'm not, I'm trying to keep I'm trying to keep this low poly, so I'm not going to add too many cuts. That, one extra one is fine. So something like that should look pretty good. All right, so from here, it doesn't matter how you do it. You want to select this whole piece here. So you can either, drag down and select all of them like so, but you need that top one also. Normally what I do is I go into 2 for edge select, and I grab the top one, and then using Control, I'll click on the bottom one, and that highlights the whole thing. And we're going to hit P for select. It's not for select, it's for separate. P for separate. So P for separate, S for selection, and then that just broke that away from the rest of the group, made it into its own object. And from there, like I said, we want to get into object mode. We want to be in object mode like we are now. Okay. Now, the only thing that's different here is we don't have to go into edit mode. And once we convert it to a curve, we don't have to go into edit mode and spin any of those control points. So let's right click, convert it to a curve. All right. With the gutter at this point, we tabbed into edit mode and we spun all of these control points, and we don't need to do that here. All right. We just, this is going to be round, completely round. So it doesn't matter. All right. So stay in object mode, go back over here to your curve properties. We don't need, for this one, like I said, we don't need this fill mode can stay on full because that's going to allow this to be completely round instead of just a half. And you do not need to click on fill caps, because if you do, that's going to plug up the end of your downspout, and then your water is going to have no place to go, which is going to back up inside of there. Not really what you want. All right. So from here to resolution, I guess we'll do one. We'll see what this looks like on one. Because like I said, my spouts, I did every one of them. I do on two, but this looks absolutely fine. So I think I've been adding extra geometry when I really didn't need to. All right, so let's try one, see what that looks like. All we really need to do from here is just grab this depth and start pulling it out. Now, the way that I normally do this is I'll zoom into the bottom of my spout, and I'm kind of utilizing these two side edges here. You can see we got 1, 2, 3. I'm using these two outer ones because I want my spout to be about as wide as that. All right, so I'm using the depth here, and I'm going to pull that out, not going any further than those two edges, and see how that looks. Now, this is the way that I did it on with the resolution at 2, because my lines were in different places. All right, so that looks kind of, I don't know. It looks okay, but it looks a little clunky. To me, it looks a little big, doesn't it? Does it like match the rest of, like, proportionally? Does it match the house? And you can measure this. You can use measure tools if you want to see how big things are, to make sure you're not making like a 12-inch rain spout. I don't know. I mean, that looks okay. I normally do things visually. As long as the house is set, properly, it'll look okay. It'll be okay. I'm going to leave it there, I guess. Maybe I'll bring that in just a little bit more on the, I'll bring it in on a downspout so it doesn't look so thick. That was throwing me off there. Yeah, that looks better. This way it doesn't look so thick and bulky. All right. Yeah, I'm so used to having my resolution on 2, and you can see what happens just bumping that back up to 2. All right. Didn't make that much of a difference from what we have here between 1 and 2. Right. I'm okay with 1. 1 is fine. We'll keep it there. But on my gutter up there, it made a difference because the lines that I was using to line up where I want that downspout to be, I had an extra set of lines in there because of the resolution. But anyhow, when you have that, we got one more step that we want to make here. If you look at the very top of the downspout here, it does not connect all the way with our, oh, this might make a difference here. Maybe that's why I was using 2. Let's see what happens here. You can see that it doesn't connect. And what you want to do is select that, get yourself into edit mode, and grab that very top control point. All right. And you want to G for grab because we're going to move it. Actually, let me escape out of there. I want to look at this from the top view. You want to G to grab it, and you're going to move it upwards. So we're going to hit Z for the Z axis. And I'm just going to pull that upwards until I can see it starting to poke through the top there. Oh, yeah, it doesn't look bad. That's fine. Absolutely fine. And that's the whole point there, is that you can manipulate any one of these, right? So when you're in edit mode, if for some reason, like say this downspout is either too far away from the wall or maybe it's too close to the wall, all right, you can grab your control points here, okay? So maybe it needs to go closer to the wall. You can G to grab it, X for the X axis, and you can tuck that in closer. You can pull it further away. All right. So you can manipulate these any way you want. That's why I recommend, keeping these the way it is, not committing any of your changes until you're completely satisfied. And like I said, you can grab any of these. Maybe, you need to shorten up your spout, or you may need to make it longer or what have you. But you can control any one of these. You can manipulate any one of these control points to have it, to tailor it to your needs, to fine tune it, so to speak. But I think that looks good the way that it is. So we're going to keep it right there. And now I'm just going to zoom into the bottom of this spout, and I'm going to add that solidifier, the solidify modifier on it. Go to solidify. And whoa, that is pretty thick. All right, so we're just going to drag that out like so. and that's fine. Like I said, I don't shoot for anything too thick because I'm not going for the visual aspect of it. I don't want to be able, to necessarily see the thickness. I just don't want to be able to see through the spout. Not that big of a deal, I know. And for you, maybe it's not that big of a deal. And you can skip that step, right? So you don't have to, add that solidify if you're okay being able to see through it. Like how many people in game are going to be able to see down through the top of your rain spout? None, really, unless they're flying around for some reason, and that's if they even notice. So this is kind of a nitpicky detail, whether or not, you want to do that or not. Like I said, from here, if I was to look at it, this would be highlighted red and I'd be able to see through that in game. And for some of you guys, that may not be a big deal. I'm a little OCD, a little anal retentive when it comes to some things like that. So I just make it solid and that's the end of it. And it doesn't add it. I mean, for the gutter and the spout, it actually doubles the geometry, but the geometry wasn't much to begin with. So I don't really worry about it. That's it. That's going to be a judgment call that you make. All right. From here, we're going to highlight this spout here. Did we convert it yet? No, we did not. So let's right click, convert it back to a mesh. All right. And then we want to join this back into the main house. Okay. So we're going to join them all together. Now, the way that you join these, now we're going to use Control J to join, but the order that you join them makes a difference. And I don't want to say the order that you join them, it's the order that you select them, right? So if I select the house and I hit shift so I can select multiple, and then I select the spout and then the downspout, what that's going to do is the very last thing that you selected is what it's going to join everything to. So the order that I just selected these, it's going to join everything as part of the gutter. Not a big deal. It doesn't matter. It's just going to make it into one object, but you'll have to rename that. So if you went through, like you can see that I have house 18, maybe I'm just that lazy and I don't want to have to rename that one. Like I said, it's all I'm trying to say is the order makes a difference, right? So whatever you want this to be a part of. So I want to join this gutter. The downspout and the gutter, I want to join to the house. All right. So I'm going to pick this downspout first, then the gutter. And then lastly, I'm going to pick the house because that's what I want to join it to. And I want to Control J, and now everything is part of that house. All right. Like I said, if you would have got them out of order, the only thing that would have happened is you would have joined the house to the gutter. So instead of having house up here, it would now say gutter, and you'd have to rename that. Really not a big deal. Just wanted to, get the point across that, the order selection does matter. Okay. And there you have it. Now that is how I do my gutters and my downspouts. All right. I had some of you guys ask me, how I do mine. And I tried to explain it through the comment section, which wasn't the easiest thing in the world. So hopefully visually, showing you through video, was a lot easier to follow along with on how I do the gutters. Okay. And that's it. Like I said, I do them the same way every time. It's simple. Once you get the hang of it, just follow along with the video once or twice. And then once you do it a few times, you'll have it memorized and you'll be pounding out, rain spouts in no time flat. Alrighty. So some things I guess you can look forward to. I had a couple of you guys ask me if I can show you how to make houses and garages again. Now, we did do a garage, a very, very simple garage. But what I'll do is I think for one of these videos, it'll be kind of like a let's build, I guess. I'm going to take you through the whole process, the entire process of how I make, one of these structures. Now, I have a lot of different ones. Like this is just house number 18. I think 16 was the last one I just did here. And you can see there is a lot in here. These are all models for the new map, by the way. Yeah, this is the last one I just did. This is actually the second time I'm shooting this video. And the first video, we made downspouts and gutters for this house here. All right, so all of my houses look different. And the reason they look different is because they're based on a real life location. So I've kind of just been using Google Earth or Google Maps, and I've been going through Street View, and I've been remodeling the actual houses that are in the area, right? Because I want everything to look true to life, and how much truer can you get than the actual house that belongs there? All right, so that's what I'm going to show you, right? So I'm going to show you how I do that. There's specific add-ons that I use to help me along, and they're not necessary, but there's things that I do, like reference images and stuff like that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'll take you through the whole process and show you how I make my houses and garages, all the way up to unwrapping, texturing, brain spouts, the whole 9 yards. All right. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So that is my method for making gutters and rain spouts. I know. Yeah, you lived your entire life just for this point where, Bauer shows you how to make a rain spout. This is what my life has become. Anyhow, very useful to have. Like I said, when you do enough of these houses, or whether it's a placeable, you need them. It adds that little bit of aesthetic to your house. So that's it. I hope you enjoy. I hope that it comes in really handy, for your future projects. And I'm going to leave it right there. So with that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.